welcome back to the Premier Injuries channel. Today we're talking, with some of the international breaks still going on, but we've got some very important discussion points. But I welcome everybody back to the channel, but I also welcome a new guest. It is Linn, FPL. How are you doing today, Linn? And have you enjoyed this little break from FPL?
I am doing surprisingly well, considering I'm doing a lot of IKEA flat pack furniture. And yeah, it's been good to have a break, I think.
I mean, I don't enjoy the international break too much. I'm just too much of a Premier League addict. How are you doing though, Ben? Have you been enjoying this international break at all, or has it been harder than usual keeping up with the injuries?
Always difficult trying to track players from every far-flung corner of the earth. And then, of course, we've got the added complexities around quarantine and amber and red list country and players who are double jabbed and, self-isolation and 5 and 10 days. And so, yeah, it's been a bit of a minefield. And I've enjoyed the break from the Premier League, but I am looking forward to really smashing it from Gameweek 4 onwards, because the first 3 game weeks haven't really went to plan.
I can't believe you've not referenced the coup d'etat as well. I mean, we've had some really weird reasons why players might not be returning on time. Linn, I'm sure you'll know well, because it's one of the Liverpool players that might not be returning in time due to that coup d'etat. I can't remember which country. Was it Mali, Ben? Just unbelievable reasons. And we're just seeing really complex, strange situations that might prevent our FPL teams just being that normal. And just quickly, Linn, how's your season been with Fantasy Premier League?
It's actually been all right. I've done fairly well. I'm sitting about 100,000 OR. And I've had a good start, and I've been lucky with my players. Not too many injuries and not too many not returning on time and things like that. So far I'm happy.
And Ben, the big news is the wild card. Has it paid off?
Look, a wild card is just not for one game week. It's for the rest of the season, or certainly at least the rest of the first half of the season. So the game week 3 was always going to be difficult, and it's a blip in the master plan. I brought in 5 premiums just to give it a try, and then build up the rest of the team with just cannon fodder, really just to see how it would go. And it returned a paltry 34 points in game week 34, which was just slightly down on average, just a 20 points down on average, but I'm going to absolutely smash game week 4.
I mean, does that mean Ronaldo's going to be in the team soon?
No. His ownership is going to be far too high. And in fact, if you look at those transfers, both incoming and outgoing ahead of game week 4, you'll notice that Ronaldo is in pole position in terms of incoming, and Bruno is the highest player transferred out. And for me, that's music to my ears. The more people that get rid of Bruno, the more I'm loving it. So I'm happy. I'm going to be, look, don't at me with he's not on penalties, he'll not be on as many set pieces, he'll not get the bonus points, he'll not get as many good. Look, I'm sticking with Bruno. Right? That's it. No conversation, no discussion. I'm sticking with Fernandez.
So Bruno is a Ben Dinnery differential special. I've got a couple of teaser / warm-up questions, because it has been the international break. It's been a time of reflection. I want to ask, first of all, to you, Linn, who's the team that's impressed you most this season? Who's the team that's least impressed you? And then maybe a tout shock for the season, so whether that is a good or a bad shock.
That's a good question. Least impressive, probably Arsenal. I did expect a bit more from them, I have to say. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. that is the truth. The upside for you is it can only get better, because you are at rock bottom at the moment. And the most impressive, I actually have to say Brentford, because they've done a lot better than I would assume. Maybe that's because Arsenal were so bad. Who knows? But no, Brentford, impressive.
And a shock for the season, do you think there's a certain team that's going to underperform that a lot of people believe in, or maybe a team that, like you're saying, go on then.
I think Aston Villa, because of their signings, they looked like they could be having a great season this year. But I think they just need more time to play together, and they need to have a bit of luck and not have a lot of injuries, which I suspect they will have. So yeah, I don't think Aston Villa is gonna have that amazing season we first thought.
And this is something that we will get on to later, because this is our usual kind of the good, the bad, and the ones to keep an eye on discussion. But yeah, the same question to you, Ben. First of all, team that maybe's impressed most. Second, the team that's least impressed. And then a shock for the season, because you are the differential man. You've got to find a differential pick in there.
I really like Chelsea. I think they've started the season, really strong. The addition of Lukaku turns them into a team for me, real strong title contenders. I think they're up there with United, City. Liverpool look a little bit lightweight in terms of their squad depth. And if they pick up a couple of injuries to key players, they may struggle. But it'll be fascinating to watch to see how that unfolds. Team that's disappointed me most, and we've discussed this before, probably Leicester City. In actual fact, they come off the back of the FA Cup win, the Community Shield victory as well. High expectations from Brendan Rodgers, man, and it just, the underlying stats back up what we're seeing with the eye. They're just being pretty poor, pretty dire, boring to watch. Injuries will play a part in that. Brendan Rodgers maybe isn't being able to deploy his tactics and formation that he may have liked. But look, I think there has to be a lot more to come from Leicester this season. And the team who, the surprise team this season, potentially, maybe Brighton. Maybe this is Brighton's year. Maybe this is a year that, we stop talking about these, how they're not hitting their metrics across the board, and actually they will deliver. Possibly.
As a Sanchez,
I have to make a Graham Potter reference, given the conversation that we've just had off air as well, Lynn.
Yeah. Well, I don't. the discussion points of geography and everything. I don't know if you want to reveal that, Lynn, to people.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I've just moved back to Sweden, and I have moved back to Östersund, which is a town where Potter used to manage the team. I think it was 7 or 8 years or something, a long time.
He did a good job there, and
yeah, he did an excellent job. Everyone loves Potter here.
Yeah, the thing was he did so well getting that team to Europe. But let's move the discussions then, as we're talking there about Graham Potter doing the good stuff. Let's talk about some good players, some good assets, or maybe teams as well. Ben, do you want to start off the discussions with maybe a player or a team, something that's jumped out at you from game weeks 1 to 3 that you think is going to shape your transfers or movements over the next few game weeks?
The caveat is that not shape my transfers, but it's maybe one for the community to be aware of. And I think Ferran Torres, during those first 3 game weeks, he's really hit the ground running. He's a player that is well liked by Pep. And Pep, there was all this talk about, Sergio Aguero's gone. City need to bring in a striker. They heavily linked to Harry Kane. They brought Jack Grealish in, and they wondered how they would fit that centre forward, that striker, into that squad. That didn't come to fruition, and Ferran Torres has sort of grabbed that role with both hands, and he's been very impressive, almost Sergio Aguero-esque in some of his movements in terms of his gameplay. Now, I know he's young, and I know there will be inconsistencies in his performances, but as it currently stands, we're talking about a Manchester City player that looks to be pretty much as nailed as a starter as you can get, certainly in that offensive third. His classification as a midfielder, so that's always appeals, and he comes in at a nice price point. Now, it may just be a short-term punt. We're going to see Foden coming back into the fold. Kevin De Bruyne as well. Raheem Sterling won't stay on the fringes of that 11, and Mahrez for too long. But, you know, I think for this moment, Torres has earned his place in that starting 11, and he's a player that I do really like, and maybe, you know, people within the community should maybe, you know, sit up and take real notice of him.
Lynn, do you share those positive aspects to Torres? Is he worth the risk?
Yeah. For next couple of game weeks, yeah, I think so. I've got him in this week.
Oh, you've got him in already. Exciting.
Ben's favourite, Bruno.
Does that
well, look, if people are shipping Bruno out, then that makes me happy. So
music
I like
to your
movement.
ears. Music to your ears, as you always say, Ben.
All for you, Ben. All for you.
What I will say with Torres as well, there's been some really interesting quotes with Pep. So one of the ones that really stood out for me was Pep himself said after he just scored a hat-trick, he can play on both sides, make incredible runs in behind, but maybe I have to think of him playing as a striker. And then after that 5-0 win over Arsenal, Pep added to the kind of furore and excitement that he said he makes movements like the best strikers in behind, like Jamie Vardy. He's a good finisher and he's so young. And Pep knows, I don't know if he knows the data, but he certainly knows a good player. He's shaped many number 9s in world football, but Torres' non-penalty goals minus non-penalty expected goals is in the top 5% in Europe's top 5 leagues. And what's interesting to me, as well as looking at his underlying data, is he doesn't produce any sort of expected assists. He doesn't really pass to teammates. He looks like he's quite a selfish goal scorer, which is what you want. The problem for me is obviously, can he withstand that Pep roulette? But at that price point, I think he might be a punt worth taking. Let's move the discussions on, though. I think we've analysed Torres enough there. Lynn, do you want to talk about why maybe Ronaldo is the one to go to?
Oh, Ben is not going to like this, is he? No, I think he will be the focal point for everything that goes through United's attack. And so even if it's Bruno having a good game, or Pogba or Greenwood or Sancho, Ronaldo will be there as well. He will be probably the scorer, and probably the others will be assisters. So yeah, the focal point for United's attack. How can I say no?
Would you say as well that the thing with Ronaldo joining the club now is it means, like we discussed, you know, Greenwood there, Sancho, the others that are in that front line there, their positions are now under threat. You know, Greenwood has been fantastic. He probably starts out on the right this kind of game week. But then when Rashford returns, if Cavani is in any sort of contention, they're the ones that would seemingly have their places under threat. Whereas Ronaldo, at his wages, just everything about him, he is the nailed player from last season, the second best attack in the league. Is that another factor in your thinking?
Yes and no. I think Greenwood is safe for now, so it could be a good punt for the next couple of game weeks still. Bruno will play every game. It's Bruno. We've seen it before. Like, he's not going to start every game. He does start every game. So yeah, I think those two are fairly safe for the time being. And then we'll just have to see who's playing. Is it Rashford? Is Sancho? They'll be fighting in cups and Champions League and everything. So I think there will be more rotation than we've seen. But I think Ronaldo and Bruno are fairly nailed on.
They transcend fixtures as well. They're just so damn good. Ben, my question to you, you said at the start there, you trust in Fernandez, but 44.8% of his goals last season came from the penalty spot. I mean, that's nearly a 50% reduction in his goal scoring ability. What makes you confident that you can still keep hold of him and not get Ronaldo in?
Well, I'm confident that I can keep hold of him. That isn't a question. And I'm confident that I won't select Ronaldo. And I'll give you look, I've already pulled me wild card. We know that. And I'll tell you the reason as to why I've done that. and why the rationale behind I won't be picking Ronaldo. Game week 1, I returned 82 points, which I thought was a fairly solid, decent start to the season. Overall rank after one game week, over 2 million. Over 2 million were 82 points because I had a fairly standard template team for the first time in I can ever remember. And you know what I thought? At the end of that first game week, I just thought, what is the point of this? This is boring. This does not interest me whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. And that is the reason I won't be picking Ronaldo, and why I instantly deployed that wild card, got rid and took me team back down to around about 11-12%. Very differential, because you know what, I'm not bothered about getting great game weeks if everybody else is getting great game weeks. I want to be the guy who's on Fernandez when he gets a hat-trick and Ronaldo blanks. And you know, inevitably when Ronaldo does get a hat-trick and he scores for, you know what, great, because he's a great addition to the Premier League. It'll be a pleasure to watch. The guy will have doubters to prove wrong. He's come here. He hasn't been. He's not seeing out his career in the MLS here. He's come to prove to himself, to prove to the doubters, to prove that a 36-year-old in top physical condition can compete at the highest level and still win trophies. And I firmly believe we'll get that from Ronaldo.
Where are Fernandez's points coming from then, Ben?
Look, United aren't going to be a one-man team. Ronaldo is not somebody's got to supply the bullets. And I think Bruno will still have his fair share of set pieces. Granted, he won't be on penalties. But you know what? You'll change his game. You adapt. You find different pockets. For as great as Ronaldo is, he's not going to be banging week in and week out. And I just like the thought of, that ownership keeps on tumbling. And I like the thought of Bruno being a differential for Bruno, even though his ownership is still, over 40%. For him, that's pretty poor, given what we've seen since he arrived in the Premier League.
Lynn, is there anything?
Does it not worry you that he's been pretty poor when he's been playing with Ronaldo for Portugal?
I mean, he does play in that slightly deeper role. That would be the concern if his role changes. Now, with the addition of Rafael Varane in that United team, we expected Ollie to maybe drop that double pivot, the 2 6s, and go with a 4-3-3 more attacking. We thought the spine of the team was strong enough to be able to do that. And I looked at those attacking places, and in the last game week, I thought it was a strange decision to keep that 4-2-3-1, drop Pogba in there. You've got, but competitions in that attacking, front four is immense. I just think I think United will go to blow away teams. I think they will play on the front foot. They will play like they did on the opening game of the season. Almost Kevin Keegan and Newcastle, the entertainers. Yeah, we may concede 1, we may concede 2, but I tell you what, we've got enough quality in that attacking third to outgun anybody in this Premier League, I believe.
Very brave decision. And I think you might have a Kevin Keegan moment if he does do well. I would love it. I'm not going to do a Kevin Keegan impression. We've learned from many episodes that my Geordie impressions are not on point. Let's move to and I won't be doing a Swedish one either. So before we get carried away here. Let's move the discussion point to Chelsea, though. It's quite interesting because we're talking about the big boys, and hopefully we do get onto some discussion points of maybe some of the cheaper assets. But over the next 7 games, people have to be looking at Chelsea. They have the 3rd best fixtures of all teams in the Premier League. Up next is the mouth-watering game against Villa. But I was really impressed with the Chelsea game against Liverpool. 19 shots conceded in that second half when they were down to 10 men, but only 2 of the shots were above 0.13 xg. They only had 1 big chance conceded. Defensively, they're looking strong. So even with those difficult games against Tottenham and Man City on the horizon, you could back them. There's plenty of good assets in that defensive back line. Chilwell. Now, I think this is a discussion point, actually. your opinion on this, Lynn, because me and Ben have discussed off air. We're going to do it on air as well. I think Chilwell is going to be straight back into that team. Ben does not believe so. But if that is too much, if that's too hot for you, you can get Rudiger, you can get Aspilicueta. They're absolutely fine. They'll be getting you clean sheets. How many assets do you go for, though, Lynn? Is it 1, 2, 3? Do you do the treble up now?
I would go for 2, I think. And yeah, I like their defense, but Rudiger's a boring pick, isn't he? Like, if we knew Alonso was a bit more nailed on than he is, then he would be the obvious pick because he's a fun player to watch. He's just a fun FPL player. But Chilwell, yeah, as you said, he is going to come back. I think so too. Not sure how soon, because Alonso's actually been decent. Got no complaints about him. So yeah, for me it's Lukaku and Mount, the 2 obvious picks, and then just sit back and see what happens in the defense and be ready to move. Like Reece James has looked amazing as well.
Yeah, I mean, the annoying thing for me this game week was I was really considering Reece James, and he obviously got the red card. Over the last few game weeks, he's had 1.23 XGI. He's looked incredibly attacking. He's going to be involved with goals. So maybe going forward, he might be a good one. I think, though, looking historically at the way Tuchel played, especially with the Champions League final, Chilwell was in there. He was in, I think he is his best left back. And so as much as Alonso is playing well, I think Tuchel is going to be thinking, we really want to push for this title. Alonso's good enough for the Champions League. I think they'll make that switch now. But that was something that you disagreed with me, Ben, kind of quite strongly.
I did. I think you go the other route. I think Alonso deserves his place in that starting 11. You talked about Tuchel will want to push on for the title. They're doing that with Alonso in the team already. I just think to rock the boat, to create something, create a problem out of nothing, just goes against maybe the spirit of the dressing room. And I don't see any reason or any issues with starting Alonso in the Premier League and then going with Chilwell in the Champions League. And then you've got the League Cup entwined in that. So I think for the next, maybe 6 or 7 game weeks past the next international break, you can effectively rotate those 2 players every 3 days, game on game, keep them fresh. So for me, Alonso's locked in. Let's not forget, Chilwell wasn't involved, sporadically during the Euros, just a few minutes under his belt. He hasn't had any Premier League minutes. And am I right in thinking he hasn't had any minutes for England yet during this international break? So we're talking about a player. Statistically, we know the Premier League, the cut and thrust of the Premier League is the most dynamic. It's in terms of they cover the most distance and they cover the greatest distance at the highest intensity of speed. So there's no hiding place in the Premier League, particularly if you're looking at the modern day wing back who's required, to go up and down that pitch, probably a lot more than some of the other players. I just think the Champions League and the League Cup is an easier route for Chilwell to get that base level of fitness and that sharpness. I do agree he is the long-term first choice pick for Tuchel, but at the moment the shirt is Alonso's and he's better placed in terms of just, that physical conditioning.
And the question that I asked Lynn, how many players do you get from Chelsea? Obviously, again, you play FPL very different to everybody else. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3?
Lukaku was top of your wish list when I activated the wild card. He's a must. I see, if he stays fit, I see 30 goals there in that team without any question. If you have concerns about that Chelsea backline and rotation with Tuchel, I wouldn't be afraid to go with Mendy. He's a great shot stopper. He's got an excellent record. And defensively, the Blues look really, really good. And I'm with you. I mean, the maverick pick for me would be somebody like a Ziyech or a Pulisic. They're the players who, on their day, if they start, can light games up. They can create something out of nothing. But the solid pick, the consistent one, the player that you know is going to start will be Mount.
Yeah, Mount is incredible. I did quite a long thread on him, and I still think that for me, I prefer him to Lukaku just for the time being, because he facilitates you to get other players in like a Ronaldo, like Salah, so that your team's a little bit more balanced. I'm not a big fan of the three premiums approach. Let's move it on, though, finally.
Five's the future.
Let's do it with Liverpool now. Lynn, do you want to talk us through why some people have seemingly become, impatient with the Reds? Wax lyrical. Tell them why they need to trust in your team.
I don't really see why anyone would be impatient. Salah has delivered. Jota's been looking great. Trent has got a bit of a new role, and it will take a couple of games and weeks for him to properly deliver. But I think we're looking at the new Trent, who's almost playing like a forward at times. Attacking midfield, he's really in the middle, in the thick of it. And he's super exciting, I think. And Van Dijk is back, and he will also need to get back into the game and have a couple of game weeks under his belt. So yeah, have some patience. And the fixtures are turning; they're looking very pretty and green.
The question for me, for you, Lynn, is Trent's new position based purely on Harvey Elliott being in the team, though? Because, like you said, we're kind of seeing him play an inverted wing-back role. He's tucking more into the centre than making those bombing runs forward. But is that in only the games where Liverpool are trying to look to overload low-block defences? Or is this going to be a trend now going forward?
I would say it's probably a bit of both. I think Klopp is testing this out, see how it works, and if it works, it will be the new Liverpool for sure. And yeah.
I mean, it's worked well with Trent, created a lot of chances, again, high on the XGI. And the thing is as well, kind of backing up what you're saying there, great fixtures going forward. The only negative thing is that the team have underperformed their XG, and I think this is where people have got a little bit bored or asking questions.
Yeah, but people who look too much at XG are not watching the games properly. Like the eye test is a big thing as well. Look at the players, look at the runs, look where the positions they take. Is Alexander-Arnold looking more threatening now? Yes, he is. So much more. You can see it if you watch the games. And you can probably see it on his XGI as well, if I'm honest. but still, like, you can't just go by one metric. You need both.
Yeah, the eye test is so vital. And I think the other thing with it as well is Liverpool historically have overperformed XG. They're comfortable. They've got world-class forwards. They have the ability to do that. And so it's probably more of an anomaly that they are underperforming for once in a very, very long time. Ben, are you warm on Liverpool? I mean, do we need to add anything else, or should we move on to the prospects that we need to possibly wait on?
No, I'm in Salah and Trent. Really like Liverpool. Happy to keep and stick with them in our exit. Again, the only concern that I would have about them going forward is if they were to pick up one or two injuries in key positions.
So with prospects to wait on, Lynn, we have to start off with Traore and Jimenez. You're already a Traore owner, so you can, wax lyrical. You can kind of blow the trumpet for Mr. Traore there. But have Wolves been unlucky? Kind of looking at this data, really good underlying data, or are they just not very good? Traore historically has been very poor at the conversion rate with goals.
Yeah, he has been poor, but he's taken 3 times as many shots this season compared to previous 2 seasons. So if he's taken three times as many shots, his conversion rate should probably be about the same. But that would mean that he will get 10, 15 goals this season if he keeps this going. Which I think is pretty damn good for someone at his price.
Just 3 times as many misses.
Depends. Is the water glass half full or half empty?
And Ben, I mean, are you the glass full or the glass half empty kind of approach with Traore?
I like him. I think he's a great player. I just think he's a bit of a diamond in the rough. I'm not sure if he's capable of delivering double figures in terms of output. I think it was April last year when we got our first attacking return, an assist, and then a goal. And that came off the back of the season when he had been touted for, 50, 60 million. I think he was heavily linked to Liverpool at one point. And we were expecting him. It almost looked as if he had become that finished article, the season before that. His link-up play with Jimenez, it was great. He was, making the right decisions. And then he almost regressed a little bit. And I dare say players such as the ilk of Adama Traore, a lot of that is confidence and self-belief. That final season under Nuno, Wolves were very conservative, very passive in their approach. And I think that, and obviously the loss of, I think, Matt Doherty affected both Traore and that Wolves team. And they had that combination down the right-hand side. So it was almost like a bit of a transitional phase for that Wolves team. But with Bruno Lage, I'm hopeful that, it might take a game or two for these formations and tactics to sink in at Premier League level. But look, I do like Traore. I do like Jimenez. And yeah, I think they're ones to watch. They've got some nice looking games coming up. And that wouldn't surprise me if they did, start to return points sooner rather than later.
I think the interesting thing is they're playing more opposition around them in the table as well. The first few games were really tough, and maybe the positive there is they've looked good, they've played good, they've got good underlying data against tough teams. Maybe it is just luck that hasn't been on their side. To both of you, though, an interesting point is Jimenez the better option? Because he's not only just, doing shots, having shots in the box, he's also creating. So he has a large number of key passes so far this season, 0.69 XA. Is he looking at a good option? I mean, with DCL, Antonio, Bamford, should he be in consideration at all?
I jumped on Raul early, based on reports from people closely associated with the club, what they're seeing day to day on the training pitches, how he performed in pre-season. And maybe, he has been a little bit unlucky. But, no matter what you're doing in behind closed doors games and on the training pitches, you cannot replicate, again, the cut and thrust of the Premier League. So maybe it just takes a little bit of time to adjust to those levels. But if we can see anything like the Raul Jimenez that we know and loved, pre-injury, then he deserves to be talked about with all of those players without a shadow of a doubt. But for now, there's still, we're only privy to what we're being told, really, and what we can maybe observe. You don't know how deep-rooted that psychological impact of such an injury, which was career-threatening, could have on his, overall game. And it may be that it could take half a season. We heard with Aaron Ramsey. Aaron Ramsey said psychologically after broke his leg, it was 3 years before he went on the pitch, and he never gave that leg injury another thought. And he had the confidence and the belief to go out there and tolerate it, any challenge that would come his way. We just don't know. I don't know Jimenez personally, and he could be of strong mind and psychology. It may not be affecting him, but we just don't know. So for that reason, I think maybe I'll put Traore maybe just slightly ahead of Jimenez on that watch list.
Do you come to the same conclusion, Lynn?
Yeah, for me, it's like we've got 3 spots for the forwards, and one will be Antonio, one will be probably Lukaku or Ronaldo. Then the question is, do we go for a double up with Ronaldo and Lukaku? Then there's no room. Or do we just go with one of them? And then it could be a good option. Him or DCL.
It's a good question.
Both got good fixtures. I think DCL, he scored 2 penalties out of 3 goals, didn't he? Which makes me a bit skeptical.
And the interesting thing as well is how long can Everton keep up that style of play? Because it is quite testing. They had, at the start of last season, very bright, and then they didn't do so well. So we've discussed the Wolves situation. Let's move on to the other big W team that hasn't had many Ws so far. It's Watford. the big talking point with Watford is Ismail Sarr. He's the talisman. He's looking good. And actually, Watford over the next over the next 7 game weeks have the 4th best fixtures. These are winnable games. Watford are going to look at these that they have to win these to be able to stay in the Premier League. But is it too early now to take a punt on their assets? Lynn, are you even considering any of the Hornets?
No.
Not at all.
Not at all. Mainly because they're good, but there are better options, because we've got some really good options that are cheap. So I would rather go for Buendia, Traore, Jota. So yeah, it's a no from me.
And Ben, any attraction to the Hornets for you?
Not really. We know that Watford do play better at Vicarage Road, and they do have some nice home fixtures coming up. I think 27 of their wins in the Championship came on that home pitch, and we've seen it's almost like night and day how Watford perform home and away. But for me, it's just a little bit too early. I've heard a lot of talking within the community, saying Sarr is on the radar, but just, like Lynn said, there are other more viable options, more credible options who are performing and delivering it's a differential. Maverick pick would be the Sarr one if you went down that route.
Yeah, I'm surprised why you wouldn't go for it, because it is so differential dinnery. Question to both of you, throwing it back to you, Ben. Lynn mentioned, obviously, Buendia. I think you have to move off him now because the fixtures aren't good, international quarantine, everything's against it. He's a 6 million asset. Is it between him and Traore, or does it not even come into the consideration at all at that price point?
I mean, I'm leaning towards Traore. I'm with Lynn on this. I just think you know what you're getting. Yes, Sarr's played in the Premier League before he delivered. Arguably his best game came against Liverpool. I think it was in the March of April of that season, where he was outstanding. And many questioned, would he drop down to the second tier, and could Watford retain his services? He has, so fair play to him. But look, you need to be doing it at consistency, at this level. And look, it's a punt. And I'm speaking for the wider community, not just me. For me, yeah, it's viable. But for others, I think he's a risky punt, and I think there are better options elsewhere.
I mean, throwing it to you, Lynn, as I said there, Buendia, I think people need to move off of if you've got him in your team. And you're kind of already gone with the Traore move. But the fact that Sarr has scored, that Watford have scored 3 goals, it's infinitely amount more than Wolves. Does that not come into your considerations at all?
If I had to go for anyone at Watford, I would probably go for Dennis, because he could be a good enabler to get another premium in.
But no,
like Bruno or Salah.
No love for Sarr then.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's.
Sorry, no love for Sarr.
Sorry.
I just hope that I hope you both don't get stung by the Hornets, because I believe a little bit in them. I think, looking at them defensively, they've been fairly all right. 1.2 XG conceded per 90, again against a supposedly good Villa team, a good Tottenham team, difficult away game against Brighton. So I don't think defence is going to be too much of a problem if you look at their Championship ability as well. But Sarr, he has that star quality, and I think that people might be resting on him, which, the argument for the Wolves players is they've got a good run of fixtures, and I think that this is the same thing with Watford, and maybe this is something that we can revisit in a few weeks' time, but I feel like Sarr's going to get more points than Traore over the next coming weeks. Lynn is very much questioning that one. Maybe that can be like a mini in-podcast bet between you and I, Lynn, and I'll be happy.
We can keep track of them.
Yeah, I don't know how many game weeks you want to do it for, but we'll decide that in off air, and we'll put it up on Twitter and everything. The final one that I think needs to be raised, and again, maybe I'm getting too hyped here, but I've really enjoyed watching Odsonne Edouard in the Scottish Premier League. I'm not sure how often people say that they enjoy watching the Scottish Premier League, but you know, he's probably his standout star there. But what I really like about him, regular overperformer of XG in a very difficult physical league. So he's already prepared for the Premier League in one aspect, but it's also his shot map. He shoots in the top corners. He goes there, never at the goalkeeper really, which has sometimes been a problem. This is what Son does. This is what the great strikers do. And if you look at some of the kind of analysis, Smarter Scout actually compared him, his play style, his data, as most comparable to Sergio Aguero. I mean, could he be Crystal Palace's answer that they've been looking for? I used to say that Palace was the place where strikers' careers came to die, because you'd look at, you know, somebody like Benteke. Is he the real deal? What do you think, Lynn?
I'm actually quite excited by him, and I'm definitely keeping an eye to see how he's doing. I've got him in a few draft leagues I'm in. It's because, yeah, he's exciting. He likes to shoot. I guess my biggest worry is who's going to supply the passes, who's going to be the creative behind him. Because I think they lack a bit there, especially with the injuries they've had.
Well, the thing is, Michael Olise is coming back, isn't he, Ben? This is the big news. I think one of the other things as well is people might underestimate the value of Will Hughes coming into the side. He's such a good defensive-minded midfielder, but he also is really good at that link-up play. He'll add a bit more speed, which maybe Milivojevic, you know, due to the way that he is as a player, he's a lot slower. Zaha is going to be good. We can't really talk about Eze because we don't know when he's coming back. But I'm excited as well, Lynn, and I think there are a few players there. But what is the Olise situation, Ben? And are you excited as well?
I don't profess to know a great deal about the player, other than the fact that he lit up the championship. And from chatting with people in and around the club, his arrival, the hope it would be almost akin to the Eze arrival in the impact that he had at Palace, obviously before he ruptured his Achilles. So they're expecting big things. He has been struggling with a persistent lower back problem, but he's on the training pitches now, so he's stepping up his recovery, and he is closing in on a return. I'd be very surprised if he didn't appear on the pitch during this next block of fixtures between the two international breaks. So he is there or thereabouts. How long it will take Olise to return to performance and start delivering what we need remains to be seen. Again, there's going to be a period of adaptation in terms of just that step up. But they're expecting big things from him, so I'm excited by that prospect.
I'm grinning here, Ben. I really hate to do this to you with Lynn here, but I watched the Who Scored podcast. You said that Benteke was the guy, soundbite it. He was going to be it. Lynn...
10 goals.
Yeah. Lynn ripped into you. I mean, is that Benteke out the window now?
Yeah, man. We've played 3 game weeks. Benteke will be the perfect foil. The perfect foil for Edouard. Honestly, I see it. I see a future Benteke's class act. Double figures. Soundbite it. Again.
I mean, Lynn, does this make you even more confident of the big words that you said to Ben?
Yeah. Right.
Get off.
So let's move it on to, we're talking about Benteke there. Let's talk about the bad options. Not at all related subjects there. Aston Villa, really poor start to season. Lynn, you brought them up a little bit earlier. What's gone wrong there?
I think they've just got too many new players, and they've all got a certain style of play, and they just need some time to iron out the kinks and see, how are we doing this? Who's doing what? And it's going to take a bit of time.
And I think the big worry now is the turn of fixtures have come at the worst possible moment, where they've got so many problems with them. As you said, their lack of cohesiveness. Only Danny Ings has really impressed so far. Do you agree with me what I said earlier? Get those assets out.
Oh yeah, I'm getting Ings and Ronaldo.
And Ben, you know, with the Villa situation there, one thing that has actually impressed me is they have the second best XG conceded over the first 3 game weeks, but is that the opposition that they're playing? But then you look at their attacking data, amongst the worst in the Premier League against easy opposition. I mean, there is some serious problems there. But are we also kind of, Linn has said the new transfers, but are we overlooking the fact that the team had a really poor run to the end of the season? They were over-reliant on Grealish, and maybe their good run was more of a blip, and actually the team are not improved?
Look, it's difficult. I think Villa are a team in transition. I think ultimately, long term, the deal of getting rid of Grealish may serve Villa better than it might serve City. Dean Smith wanted to move away from that 4-2-3-1 that inherently it was fairly rigid. He didn't have the personnel to be able to change things up too much. I think he likes to see maybe a 4-3-3 in there. But again, you know, he's brought in players like Leon Bailey, Bertrand Traore, all, you know, being injured. Buendia has had his problems, and now he's going to be quarantined. So he hasn't had those, you know, offensive players available to him. So again, and there's going to be pressures associated with, you know, this questioned the absence of Jack Grealish, how Villa are going to cope. I just think, you know, we're talking 3 games into the season. These players need an understanding of how they're going to play, how they gel together, and that just doesn't happen overnight. So I'm with you. Look, Villa have been bad, they have been poor, but you know, they're not too far away from, you know, I can see them turning that around quite easily, because they've got some quality in that team. And like I say, attacking wise, they've got some great players. And I do like to look at them, and I love Danny Ings. And, you know, we haven't seen Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings together. That could be a 4-4-2, you know, and those two playing off each other. I think they've only done it once, maybe in pre-season, when Ollie Watkins went off at half-time. So to see those two players together and to see how Dean Smith manages his team from that point, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, for now, I think it's hard to argue against the fact that Villa have been pretty dire.
The next bit is Bruno Fernandez. Apologies again, Ben. Me and Linn are double teaming you here. It's maybe we have to mute Ben for this bit, because obviously I think we've visited this a little bit, but I put Bruno Fernandez on the bad list now. I mean, is that too much, Linn, to put him on the bad list? Is he a bad asset now?
No, I don't think he's a bad asset. We need to give them a couple of game weeks to see how they're playing, who's linking up with who. He could be an incredible assister. He could still be on the 3 bonus points, and that could maybe be enough to warrant his price. Probably not, but I'm not going to say a blank no.
I mean, if he has a huge price reduction, is there like a price that you think he's worth it at? Because at 12 million at the moment, it's a little bit too much, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely a bit much. Say if it was about 10, I would still be interested.
So Ben, do you want to add anything more? Or, you know, we're double teaming you here. It's not really fair to kind of go in on you in one of your favourite assets without you having the final word on him.
I just feel, look, when it's somebody with the quality of Bruno, you can never write a player off completely. And we still don't know how Ollie is going to set up his team. We're trying to second guess here. You know, for all we know, Cristiano might be there just to, you know, warm the bench, and Bruno might remain king. Who knows? I'm more than happy. I'm just checking there, with almost 700,000 fantasy managers have shipped Bruno out ahead of this game week, and I would expect that figure. I wouldn't be surprised if it touched nigh on a million as we approach deadline, if it confirmed that Ronaldo is available and can play against Newcastle, because most will be steaming into him. Otherwise, they might hold back a little bit and keep that for maybe game week 5.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point that you and I always say, Ben, is don't steam into those transfers just yet. Don't go in too early, because anything can happen. Somebody can get injured, anything tactically, whatever, that there could be changes above that. I mean, Lynn, do you want anything to add to that? Are you a proponent of the early transfer, beat the price rise, or do you like to wait?
Actually, I did Bruno to Torres, but I waited on Ings to Ronaldo, waited for the pressures, just making sure there's no injuries during international break or anything like that. So if you can wait, do wait. I don't think team value is the most important thing. It might be more important to wait. But for me, with Torres, I was going to lose 0.3, and that was a bit much. So I had to go in early.
Yeah, this is a point as well, as you can always kind of make up team value, but you can't make up minus points, because if you did get somebody in and God forbid they got injured, then you're back to square one, basically. You've taken a hit, possibly. But yeah, final bad team, and I think we've all been in agreement on this, is Leicester City. I mean, who wants to take the reins on this final discussion point? Lynn, Ben, who wants to sink their teeth in?
I am so disappointed with Harvey Barnes. What happened? He was going to be my little gem. He was going to be my differential. And he was going to score so many goals. He didn't.
He's done nothing.
Look, let's cut the guy some slack. He's coming off the back of a long-term knee injury. Again, he's still a young player and learning his craft. There's going to be, there's always these periods of playing themselves back in and getting minutes in their leg. We're 3 game weeks into a season. You cannot eradicate 4 or 5 months on the sidelines with a break and expect Harvey Barnes or any player for that matter of fact to just come in and hit the ground running. And I think there's a different dynamic at Leicester at the moment in terms of, like I say, they're carrying a few injuries. Brendan Rodgers obviously isn't very happy with he's not setting up his team how we would really like. I think the pressures are then different. You need to come out and play on the front foot and win. The expectation levels of the crowd of the major, therefore, are different as well from the Community Shield and the FA Cup. I think we will see Harvey Barnes come to the fore again sooner rather than later. Maybe 6, 7, 8 game weeks in. The difficulty, of course, is going to be for Leicester. They're going to be involved in European competition, and how Brendan Rodgers manages his squad in terms of rotation in and around those games, given the fact that they're pretty stretched as it currently stands anyway.
Should we be surprised, though, with the slow start from Leicester? Because looking at their end-of-season data, one of the worst kind of defensive bits, an absolute collapse there. I don't know how much Michael is to blame for that, but they let in 6.1 more goals than they should have in terms of their XG conceded. They had the 3rd most goals conceded in those last 9 games. And in looking at their attacking data, they were bottom half for expected goals. Is there a problem that maybe the FA Cup papered over the cracks, Lynn, and that there has been problems at Leicester for a while? Or do you expect them to kind of return to form because they do have really good players?
I think one of their main issues is that we had some key players with injuries, long-term injuries, like Harvey Barnes. Before he got injured, he was looking amazing. Madison's been injured. Like a lot of their key players who were creating a lot have been injured. And as Ben just said, it takes a while for them to actually get back to where they were. And we've got Wardy as well. Like Wardy, we know he can score, but he's also getting a bit older. So I think Brendan is probably trying to find the key to a new team, to how do I gel these new players together? And he hasn't found it yet. And he's trying a bit too much with different players and different setups. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, they will need some time, I think.
They say time is the healer, Ben. Is it going to take a few game weeks then for us to heal our trust in somebody like Harvey?
I think so. But we've seen a couple of players back on the training pitches during the break. We talked about Leicester's defensive frailties. A lot of that coincided with the absence of Johnny Evans. And even when he was playing towards the back end of last season, he wasn't 100%. A painful foot condition, plantar fasciitis, which needs to be managed. It culminated in him, coming off in the FA Cup final, leaving the stadium on crutches, and only now is he just getting back to doing a little bit of work out on the grass. He would be a big boost, just that presence in that back line, his experience, and also I think Vestergaard back in there, and that'll help Soyuncu because he's looked a little bit exposed. He's looked a little bit raw. There's been one or two mistakes in his game this season, which you don't associate Soyuncu with that in the past. So, and then once you get in that confidence breeds confidence. All it takes is a couple of lucky goals, freak result, and Leicester could be back on it. But look, I said at the head of the show, Leicester up till now have been massively disappointing.
So with that is the last discussion point. We'll head into the end of the show then. As always, we give so much thanks for you tuning in, and we hope that the information has been useful. Remember to subscribe to the channel. We're growing. We've got great content. As you can see, we're getting fantastic guests like Linn on as well. Do message in. We read all the comments. We love seeing those likes and interacting with you as well. And sometimes we do the live Q&A sessions as well, which you can tune into, sending questions, get all those burning FPL problems answered. And do check out Linn as well. She's easy to find on Twitter. She does some fantastic breakdowns. There's so much good content here, and hopefully we'll be seeing her much more often on the channel here. But for now, I'm going to say thanks to Linn, and I'm going to pass over to Ben just to see us out.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Another great show. Really enjoyed your knowledge and insight as always. And again, to Linn, FPL Linn. Check her out if you don't or haven't been on her Twitter account before. Pop to cherry. I hope that wasn't too bad, and we will look forward to doing lots of great work in the future. What more can I say? And thanks everybody for watching. If you do have any comments, any feedback, any suggestions, bang them in the comment box below. We do read everything and we try to respond to as many as possible. But for now, and looking ahead to Game Week 4, that's us done. And good luck, everyone, and see you soon.